Hey everybody, Scott here at EFI System Pro, and today in the shop we're installing a nitrous kit. Stay tuned. So today we're installing a nitrous kit. So first let's go over what comes in the kit, and then we'll look at the car it's going on. So this is the Sniper Nitrous kit from NOS. Comes with a 10-pound bottle, comes with the bottle brackets, and pretty much everything you need here. It has jets for 100, 125, and 150 horsepower. And this is a wet kit, which some of you won't need. So if you're installing this with EFI, most of the time you would use a dry kit and then let the EFI handle the fueling. You can't get a 4150 nitrous kit in a dry setup, so you have to get one that's wet and just not use the fuel solenoid. So one thing you don't see here is a nitrous bottle pressure gauge, and we definitely recommend picking one of those up. If you order your system through us, we'll make sure you get everything you need and nothing will be left out, so you'll be able to install it once you get it, not have to order more parts and wait for that. So now that we know what we're putting in, let's look at what we're putting it into. So this is a 74 Nova. It's kind of a test bed and a dyno mule for us to test all kinds of things. Right now it currently has a Sniper on it, and we do have a full installation video of that in this car that you can see. This car was fully gutted and a full drag car at one time. When I got it, I started converting it back somewhat to a street car to try to make it relevant for what we do here. I wanted it to start with a key and be able to be street driven. The plan is to get it to a point that it can do drag and drive events, so you may see it at like Sick Week, Sick Summer, Hot Rod Drag Week, things like that. So right now it's just a stock 350 with the Sniper, makes about 270 horsepower, and we're gonna add a bunch more to that. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is take the Sniper off and put the included longer studs in for the nitrous plate. All right, once your studs are in, put one of the included gaskets with the kit, then your nitrous plate, and you probably won't be able to see it, but it said this side up because it's going to spray the nitrous in the fuel down. Now in our case, we're not going to spray any fuel, we're going to do this dry, and we're also going to cap this fuel port with an AN cap. Then your second included gasket, and put your Sniper back on. Alright, so now we'll pre-mount the bottle in the brackets, so then we can mock it up in the trunk of the car. Now it's really important to mount the bottle in this orientation with the label pointing up and the bottom angled down. The reason for that is the pickup tube starts here and works at an angle all the way down to this very bottom edge. So with the label up, you know that you're always going to be picking up nitrous no matter what. When you accelerate, it all goes to the back and it all sits on the bottom, and the tube will get every bit of it. Alright, so I think this is where we're going to mount it, all the way in this back passenger side corner. Plenty of room up that way to get the bottle out when we need to refill. We've got a nice flat surface to mount the bottle. And that little bit of weight's going to offset me being the driver in the other side of the vehicle. So we'll get some holes drilled and bolt that down, and then we'll get to plumbing. And so now we're going to get this hose routed. We'll attach it to the bottle first, run it up to the front of the car, we'll hook it to the solenoid, and then we'll just be a little bit of wiring away. So now every car is going to be different in how you run this. I'm not going to force you to watch me zip tie this all the way through. You just want to make sure that it's not going to touch anything that moves. You don't want it rubbing the exhaust, anything like that. A lot of times you can secure it to a frame rail, which is pretty good. So we're going to get that done real quick, and then we'll get on that solenoid. All right, so we've got our bottle mounted, bolted to the floor. We've got our gauge on and our hose attached. And you probably can't see it. Maybe you can. This end is kind of a brass color, and that end goes to the bottle. The other end is blue and goes to the nitrous solenoid. So if you see here, this is our nitrous solenoid and has a blue end on it. All of your nitrous parts are going to be blue, and then over here all of your fuel parts are going to be red. so you can keep them separated. So on the nitrous solenoid, we put this fitting in here, and it has a filter in it to filter the nitrous, just in case you get any kind of debris in the line or anything like that. Then this end goes on the outlet, and that's going to go to the plate under the throttle body, and that's where we'll put the jet that dictates how much horsepower this makes. All right, so down here you can see our blue nitrous fitting. That's where the jet's going to go. So we have the jet here that is for the 100 horsepower shot. So we'll put that in, and if you notice how it's tapered, that's so it'll seal on the AN fitting coming from the nitrous solenoid. So we'll snug that up, get the nitrous line connected, and a little bit of wiring. All right, while we're up here messing with this part, we need to cap off this fuel port because we're not going to use it. So we just need to take one of the nitrous jets. Like I talked about, it has the flared end on it. Put that in there, and then we just take a 4AN cap. We'll put that on there, and that'll block off that fuel port so we don't have a vacuum leak or anything. So there's really not a good way to show the wiring being done up under the dash of the car. So here is a screenshot from our installation page that we have for nitrous. This will also be linked in the description, but it gives you an idea of the wiring that needs to be done. One thing I did different, if you look at this, the yellow wire goes to a momentary switch. That's to activate the nitrous just at the push of a button, Fast and the Furious style kind of thing. I wanted mine to be automatic, and I also didn't have a spare input to use because I have trans brake, and that uses one of the inputs. So I omit that connection, and it's just triggered by a sequence of RPM and throttle position to activate the nitrous. And that'll be explained in the next clip showing the software setup. Okay, so now we're in the software and we can set up the configuration file for nitrous control. First thing to do is open your existing configuration file. I have mine loaded from the best naturally aspirated dyno run I made with the Nova before the nitrous install. From there, we'll go to the toolbox and select Enable a Nitrous, and then click No in the pop-up window. Click the nitrous bottle, and then click Activate. I'm going to set this up as I need it for my car. Most of you will probably be similar, but you might need slightly different settings. Start by selecting your master enable input. Then I'm going to set up as a dry progressive setup. The Sniper is going to handle all fueling, and I want to ramp the nitrous in for a few reasons. Traction is one, and I'm trying to keep the drivetrain alive for another one. I also set the dry fuel delay to 250 milliseconds, which is 1/4 of a second. That gives the nitrous time to actually get from the solenoid and exit the spray nozzle in the intake before the ECU adds fuel. This setting varies a lot depending on your plumbing setup. From there, we will set our nitrous relay output, and where it says input, you can assign an input for a nitrous button if you want to activate it that way. I just want mine to run automatically once all the criteria is met, like wide open throttle and enough RPM to safely activate. Speaking of that, we're setting those next. I set the TPS to 90% on the off chance that you only slightly back off the throttle from the launch, but we still want to keep that pretty high to not risk nitrous flowing at low throttle amounts. I want to wait till 4,000 RPM to activate, and this engine shouldn't rev above 5,500 or 6,000 RPM, so we'll set it to 6,000. Below that is used for cutting off nitrous while all activation parameters are met, for situations where you may only need nitrous to get a turbo spooled up or only want to run it for the first few seconds of a run. In our case, I want it to run at all times. The parameters are met, so the whole way down the track. Next, we will set the fueling safeties to stop the nitrous if things get unsafe. I like to give it a decently sized window to not be able to disable too easily. 13:1 on the lean side and 11:1 on the rich side works for me. For pedaling control, I want to use pause in this situation. This will stop the nitrous program if you back off the throttle, but then just pick back up where it left off if you get back in the throttle. You can also set it to start the ramp in again if you prefer that. Now we are at the point of tuning the timing. I plan to ramp the nitrous in over a 2-second window. First set the time in the bottom row, then in the top row set the amount of timing retard you want. This can be a little confusing. The software won't let you put a negative number in here. So put the amount of retard you want. If you want to reduce timing by 2 degrees, then just put 2 in there. I like to start with 2 degrees for every 100 horsepower of nitrous. We are starting with 100 shot, so I'll ramp from 0 degrees to 2 degrees over 2 seconds, then leave the last cell very long to make sure the adjustment stays in place for the entire run. Here we will enable closed loop to keep us safe and maintain a good air-fuel ratio. 12:1 is where I like to start. Now this table is what controls the nitrous solenoid. I'd like to do the same thing I did in the timing retard section. This will ramp the nitrous in smoothly from 0 to 100% over a 2-second span. The last thing we need to do is tell the ECU how much fuel we want to add with the nitrous as a starting point, and if that's off some, closed loop can come in and help save the day. I like to start with 30 pounds per hour for every 100 horsepower and then tune from there with plug readings. Now that's all for the configuration file updates. We'll load this into the ECU and you should be ready to go. All right, nitrous is all installed. We're on the dyno now. Gonna get a baseline pull with just the nitrous plate on there, but no nitrous flowing yet. So let's go ahead and get that baseline pull with no nitrous, and then we'll do a 100 shot pull. All right, here we go. First pull with nitrous. This is a 100 shot. Let's see what happens. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at the graph. We got a big jump in power there. That's gonna make a whole lot of difference at the track. All right, everything put together, dyno run's done, and we're out here at the track to see what the difference is between no nitrous and nitrous, and see what that power gains us in quarter mile. from the track, and I was gonna make one more pass. I'm sure you heard the rev limit hit on the 2 gear changes. That was the first nitrous pass, and the shift point just came up a little bit quicker than I was expecting. But we got rain after that first pass, and so I couldn't make another one. So we would have shaved, I'm sure, a tenth or two, just getting those shifts right. But one other thing that happened, I'm sure you definitely noticed, is a pretty good bit before the finish line, hitting the rev limiter in 3rd gear. And that's the top gear of the transmission, so there was nothing else I could do there. I just pumped it in neutral and let it coast. So if you look at the 2 time slips here, so you can see to the 8th mile we shaved off about 4/10. The 8th mile per hour was up by 9, which was pretty good. We shaved off almost a full second at the 1,000-foot mark, and that was before hitting the rev limiter. So getting those 2 shifts just right, it probably would have been a full second. So that's a pretty good jump there. And then to the quarter, you can see we did go faster, but looks like about 8/10 of a second. And I think it probably would have been even a little bit better than a full second with the 2 shifts being just right and having enough gear to the end of the track. So hopefully this video helps you decide if you want to use nitrous, and if you're going to use it, how to put it in. All of my settings, you don't want to just sort of plop those right into yours, but it gives you an idea of what I did on mine and what worked, and it gives you an idea where to start. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know, and if there's any other videos you want to see on things, let us know that, and we can make those for you too. So you definitely want to get with us at EFI System Pro for all of your EFI nitrous needs.